What's going on, everybody? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. I am joined once again by the star of ESPN Lacrosse, Paul Bretl. Of course, you can find him on the Colts Wire as well. If you want to get your Colts information, there's only one place to go. Right. Paul, great to be back chatting with you. How the heck are you doing?
I'm excellent, Andy. Hope you're doing well. Always happy to be here talking Packers with you. And goodness, what a 2 weeks it's been.
It has been. Before I forget to follow him on Twitter at Paul_Bretl, of course. But it has been an amazing couple weeks. I don't know that I could have predicted this in any way, shape, or form for Malik Willis to come in. And it's one thing to maybe like grind out a couple wins and somehow just steal 2 victories, I guess. That wouldn't have stunned me. But man, the way that they found victories in these 2 games by just running it right down Indianapolis's throats, and then in the next game, finding ways to get Malik Willis to look like a good, legitimate NFL starting quarterback. Like it is unbelievable, unfathomable, all of the above. And it is a very fun time to be a Packers fan.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, like you said, I don't think anyone would have seen this coming, especially given the circumstances that Willis stepped into, obviously just having arrived in Green Bay. But what the Packers have had to do, specifically on offense, but I think defensively as well, I think is going to greatly benefit them down the road. Their ability to adapt, to adjust. Like there have been, specifically in the run game and some passing game concepts that I'm going to guess probably wouldn't have been implemented if Jordan Love was still out there, hadn't gotten hurt. And that ability that they're showing that they can put on tape and all the variety of different ways that they can hurt a defense, I mean, that becomes really difficult to defend. And if you keep, obviously it's going to be varying degrees, but if you continue to leverage those abilities, what you've done in the run game, the variety of looks, personnel groupings, that gets magnified, obviously, when you have a player of Jordan Love's caliber back under center. And if you're an opposing defense, there's so much to account for right now. Like, what do you take away from this Packers team? And so I think that's really the big thing that can be the catalyst for them moving forward is, all right, what did we do here? And how can we continue to implement that to varying degrees with Love under center? Because like I said, there's just so much that they've thrown at the Colts and at the Titans defensively for them to have to be mindful of. And when you have Love back, like I said, it magnifies it. And to take it a step further, you could look at just all the variety of players that are seeing playing time right now. Obviously, Jordan Morgan's injured, but there was a rotation at right guard. They have 6 receivers they can lean on. They have 4 different linebackers. There was Valentine and Stokes. Evan Williams is getting in at safety. A variety of players means a variety of skill sets. A variety of skill sets means a variety of options for the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. And again, if you're the opponent, what are you taking away from this team? Because you try to take away what they do best, but if they got a 1B, a 2, that's pretty formidable, which the Packers have shown on both sides of the ball. Again, that's a really difficult team to defend, and having to go through this early season adversity, I think has opened up just a bevy of opportunities and pathways that now they can go down, because as we know, the margin of victory, especially when you get to January, is razor thin. But when you have multiple ways that you can win, that you can take an opponent apart, you become really difficult to beat that time of the year.
I'm beaming because there's so much of this stuff that I want to dive into with you today, because you wrote a couple articles about this exact stuff, specifically about the adaptability of the offense, which I want to touch on. But the beautiful thing is, as well as to what you're saying, it's the ability not only for like, what do you want to take away as like a defensive coordinator? Like, what are you trying to stop? But like Matt LaFleur is preying on exactly that. And meaning, I talked about this earlier this week, but that Tennessee's thinking, all right, they're not going to be able to run inside on us. And they're going to want to run the football, and they're going to want to attack the edges. So I guarantee you, like Kenneth Murray and those linebackers were keyed up to be like, watch the outside toss plays and watch the outside run, because in their previous game, they had some issues with that, with stopping the run on the outside. And I guarantee you they're keyed up for it. So what does Matt do on the very first play? Fake toss outside. Those linebackers flow right to it. They knew it was coming. They're all excited about it. And Jaden Reed escapes on the back end. And the beauty of this play, obviously, Paul, I go through and I watch every play, grade every play, and analyze every play. There are so many times where, like, you look at that specific play. There's almost nobody that has to do their job to any exceptional extent on that play. Meaning, the ball is out in 2 seconds. Like there's a couple of plays along the offensive line where the offensive linemen maybe don't do a great job of picking up their blocks. And it doesn't even matter because the ball is out of Willis's hands in under 2 seconds. Like everyone that's on the right side that's faking everything is doing nothing. It is just smoke and mirrors, just look over here, everyone. And they don't have to do anything to execute on the play at all. There's a block downfield on the left side that can help Jaden Reed a little bit. I think it was maybe Dobbs on that side. I could be misremembering, but there's a wide receiver block. But it's basically literally Will Levis faking a pitch, not difficult, and then throwing just a 5-yard easy completion over the middle of the field to a wide open Jaden Reed. No need to really manipulate the defense or hold a safety. It's literally just faking a toss, which is elementary stuff. And Jaden Reed, he's not even like pretending to like block on the play. He's just literally sprinting across with no defender on him, running through the zone that those linebackers had vacated. And now you've got Jaden Reed chilling wide open in the middle of the field. And then it's just run after the catch, which is, again, there was nobody there up until 20, 30 yards later. That is the beauty and the mark of an unbelievable offensive play caller. And what I used to say all the time is how I judge a play caller, both offensively and defensively, is you have to be 3 or 4 plays just better than the opposing coach every single game, where you can get an advantageous look for your team, where even if your team sucks, and even if your team is with a bunch of backups or can't execute stuff, that you can get a couple plays just off of tape study and by setting things up that you're expecting them to do. Can you get a handful of those a game, whether it's a blitz on defense or whether it's an easy thrown off? This is a beautiful example of this literally took a fake toss, an easy 5-yard throw over the middle, and a run after the catch, and maybe one sort of block from an outside wide receiver. There's nothing exceptional about anything that anyone did on that play, and it's a 30-yard pickup on first down to start the game. It is magical what Matt LaFleur is doing right now.
The beauty of the play design. And there's a little bit of what happened last year that I'm going to equate to these first couple weeks, in the sense of, in the early going last year, we know the struggles that they had. And we heard about Matt LaFleur because it's such a young offense. It's week 4, 5, 6. They're still trying to figure out, how do we best utilize these young players that we have? And Matt LaFleur also said there was a bit of, taking the training wheels off, for lack of a better term, and just letting them go out there and play. I think to a lesser extent, because obviously, and we've seen it, they know how to utilize Jaden Reed to his fullest extent here. But I think some of the overlap there is this year's, in the sense of, you had to figure out a way with Malik Willis that wasn't what you were going to do with Jordan Love. And in implementing those plays, those play calls, seeing the execution, you start to see, okay, the offensive line can handle this. Jaden Reed can really thrive in this role. And it's how you now leverage that moving forward that I think is, one of the benefits that the Packers are going to get out of this, that can really, like I said at the start of all this, be advantageous to them down the road. Because I think they've really learned so much more about their coaching staff, about their players, what they can handle, how they can execute it. And again, you put a player of Jordan Love's caliber back into that mixture, and who knows where this offense can go.
I think it's the biggest lesson that Matt LaFleur has learned as a head coach. And I think he's done a tremendous job of sort of learning lessons through his coaching career and continuing to get better. And even like the Chiefs game where he failed with Love in that one, he was hard on himself, and you could tell he had multiple press conferences. He addressed, I wasn't good enough for Jordan in that game. I need to be better. But I think the biggest lesson that he has learned is that he is insanely good at his job, and there don't need to be training wheels, regardless of almost who is out there. His system works. And it doesn't matter if it is Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, or Malik Willis coming in. He can make it work no matter what. And he has the ability to put together a game plan and a scheme no matter what. There don't need to be training wheels. And I think we saw last year, I thought the Bears game was a great example of a Matt LaFleur-esque offense. And they just had a great game plan for it. And then we saw from kind of week 2 up until probably about that Steelers game, just a lot of bizarre screen passes that weren't really working. And it looked like a handcuffed version of the Matt LaFleur offense because he didn't trust it. And then I think finally he said, screw it. I'm going to go out and we're going to run this thing. And they did, and everything kind of took off from there. And I think that's been, again, the biggest thing that he has learned. And I agree with you. I think the adaptability, the ability to go against a Colts team where you've got a quarterback that just got here and say, we're going to run the ball 50 times and we're going to be successful doing it. And then the next week being like, I know I'm going to have to open up the playbook. I know I'm going to have to throw on 3rd and 14s, 3rd and 18s, and let this kid rip it a little bit and still have a play design and a game design for that. And he's going to have even more opportunities to be, with that, with Jordan Love, like you mentioned at QB. The last thing I want to mention here too is when I've heard very smart people, and it was actually about I think it was actually a Doug Peterson offense at the time, where when Doug first became a play caller in the NFL, of how he kind of went and sort of stole all these really cool plays from all the different offenses that he saw. And it was which is cool. You take a bunch of stuff, and of course you copy. This is a copycat league, and you copy and paste those into your playbook. But there was no backbone to like an offense of what was binding it all together and making it an actual NFL offense. And what we've seen a lot from Matt LaFleur these past couple of weeks is some really cool plays that, again, you're not running Tucker Kraft on the fake little in cut going outside, a fake a read option with Malik Willis keeping it, and now Tucker Kraft going to play. You're not running that for Jordan Love. It's probably it's in the back of the playbook, maybe, or we know, as he said, he put some things in there specifically for Malik to make him more successful. But he's got this unbelievable encyclopedia of amazing plays that he's either come up with or borrowed from other teams. Some really cool stuff from all different walks of all different offenses that are out there. But it has a connected tissue where he is still doing a lot of the stuff that he likes to do. This is not like out of the realm of anything that makes it so that you have like and he's still building plays off of plays, where you'll see last week he does the spin series, and then this week he throws the screen pass off of it, which goes for a touchdown. Like, he's still baking plays on top of plays on top of plays that has that tissue connected, which is, to me, setting it completely apart, just being from this cherry picked couple cool plays here and there sort of offense.
Yeah, he had a great quote after the game, of something to the effect of, if you're not learning, you're dying. And we are seeing, as you mentioned and laid out, obviously during his 10 years of coach, but in these two games, we're seeing this coaching staff, this offense just learn on the fly, and man, they're thriving with what they're doing.
I want to talk a little bit about Malik Willis, and then we'll a couple other offensive questions too. But with Malik Willis, this was not the same Malik Willis in the second week with Green Bay that it was, and not, I guess, third week technically, but in the second week as a starter than what it was in Indianapolis. I kind of mentioned the other day, a lot of smoke and mirrors with that Indy game. It felt like they found a way to win with Malik Willis, not necessarily because of Malik Willis. And that yet in this game, it felt like, again, they let him rip it a little bit more. And Malik Willis, in a lot of ways, led this offense to victory. It wasn't they were handcuffed by him. Like, he was the reason, in large part, they won this game. It was a very different game plan from week 2 to week 3.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it early on, that Titans run defense, much more stout than the Colts. They're obviously prepared for the Packers to run the ball. The Packers weren't going to be able to run the ball 50 plus times this week. It just wasn't going to happen. They were going to have to rely on Malik Willis. And you mentioned it, the explosive plays. I think they had 4 plays of 25 or at least 30 yards through the air, some really, really big third down throws. And LaFleur mentioned this after the game. Willis's ability to take care of the football. Obviously, he doesn't have any interceptions. Pro Football Focus tracks turnover-worthy plays. He's one of 3 quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields, who doesn't have any turnover-worthy plays this season. But it's LaFleur's trust in him, the confidence that he has in Willis to take care of it, that gave LaFleur the confidence to say, all right, we're going to let it rip in some instances. And you can see when they were in the red zone and it ended up in a field goal, you could see he was kind of wanted to let it rip, but it wasn't exactly there what he was looking for. The shot play downfield to Dontavian Wicks, again, that was extremely calculated. That was a one-on-one matchup. He threw it to his outside shoulder where the cornerback didn't have a chance at it. Again, these are extremely calculated opportunities, and it goes to show, one, the overall emphasis that the Packers have on taking care of the football. That was talked about after the game, but Malik Willis is just understanding of the ins and outs of the game plan and what he's being asked to do. And I just want to take this in a different direction, because we've all seen the game at this point, obviously, and the impressive performance. But I think outside of the football element of this, it takes a really impressive person like who Malik Willis is to come in and accomplish what he's done to this point. The first 30 seconds you spend with Malik Willis when we were at his locker, you just go, this guy gets it. He understands it. I mean, how many people could come in, execute what LaFleur said is a very deep playbook to the level that he has, but also in conversations with him leading up to the game, watching him during the game, after the game, the post-game press conference, like, you wouldn't have even known that he was ever a member of the Tennessee Titans. Like, just that mindset to not let the moment get too big for him. And I think the catalyst behind a lot of that is his mindset. He is a very in the moment person. He is not worried about what was. He's not worried about what could happen. It is about today. What do I have to do right now. And there was a question at his locker last Wednesday about something to the effect of, Sunday being back at Tennessee, what are those emotions going to feel like? And his answer was something to the effect of like, that's like 4 or 5 days from now. Why am I concerned about that? We got meetings today. We just finished practice. I got film. Like, that is his mindset. That is the in the moment presence that he has about himself. And I think that has given him the proper perspective. It's not letting things, the moment, the workload of having to take in the offense get too big for him. It's just, all right, what do I got to do today? What do I got to do on this play? Check the boxes off, take the extra reps, the extra meeting. And I think that's been so important to how he's handled it all, which then obviously becomes it relays into his performance on the field. And last thing I'll say, that isn't a nonchalant, whatever type of mentality. Again, the first time we spoke with him, he knows that his film, like any NFL player, is your resume. And he knows what the narrative is about him right now, given how his first 2 years in Tennessee went. He absolutely wants to change that. But again, going back to what I started all this with, he knows he can't change it today. He can't change it tomorrow. It's a process, and it's just going one day at a time and doing the best you can in that moment. And then the future will take care of itself at that point.
There are a lot of players in this league where they could have maybe regurgitated some of those same exact talking points, and I would have just immediately called BS. Like, okay, you're going back to Tennessee, and it doesn't even register.
Mm-hmm.
I legitimately believe him. Like, and maybe I'm just being naive, but I asked him immediately after in the press conference following the Colts game of like, going back to Tennessee if he gets that opportunity, and had the same sort of mentality when he answered that question. And I think Bill Huber followed it up with a chip on his shoulder question, and same again answer. And I really get the feel that it's not a thing for him. Like, he is focused in the here and the now. It does feel like the even keeled approach. I don't know if that's a thing for Goody in his scouting report of like what he wants is an even keeled quarterback, because he has two, I think, of the most even keeled quarterbacks in NFL history that I've seen in Jordan Love and Malik Willis right now. But it absolutely feels legitimate, and I believe it every time he's talking about it. So he's a cool customer, and I think it comes out on the field as well. And I think the team has really rallied around him the past couple of weeks, which has been really awesome to see. In addition to that, I want to talk to you about two tight ends. I want to talk to you about Tucker Kraft first. And we've all talked about the progression of Tucker and how great he looks and everything like that. But I know I think you tweeted it out about the progression of Tucker and what they're asking him to do. And I think that's what's kind of the cool conversation here is we all see that he's really playing well, but they are asking him to do so much and different than what he was asked to do even a season ago. I think that's the cool aspect here.
Yeah, you go back, and I saw it particularly on the rewatch. Just he was everywhere on that football field on the offensive side of the ball. And side note, defensively, so was Xavier McKinney. I mean, goodness, but I digress. But yeah, passing game, the running game, blocking, and just what he's being asked to do, whether it's in line, blocking in space, on the move. Like, they have put a ton on his plate, and it's because he's shown that he can handle it. He's deserving of those opportunities, and the leaps and bounds that he has made. I mean, Adam Stenavich he's for the most part, he's pretty cut and dry and point blank about stuff. And he said when Tucker first got here that there was a lot of work that had to be done in the blocking aspect of this game for him. And LaFleur talked about, we know the jump from college to the NFL. LaFleur's talked about it over and over again about the tight end position specifically. But then you factor in that he's coming from, again, a high level FCS school, but nonetheless an FCS school. There was a steep learning curve for Tucker Kraft. And he said earlier this summer that there was a point last season where he called it a look in the mirror moment, where he said, if all I'm going to get is blocking opportunities, then I'm going to make the most of these blocking opportunities. And he's coming to this season saying he wants to be the best outside zone blocking tight end in football. So he's got lofty goals for himself, but he's shown over and over and over again that he can handle these variety of responsibilities. And that's such an important element to have. I know Matt LaFleur has used the term illusion of complexity in a few years, but having a tight end who can block, who can impact the passing game, who can line up across the formation, I mean, that is just such a pivotal part to accomplishing that. And what LaFleur essentially means by that is being able to run a variety of plays from a few formations, having plays that build off of each other, that look alike. So in the early portion of the game, it might react one way, begins differently later on. It's a completely different play. you need that versatility. You need that tight end who can add a layer of unpredictability to the offense. So if the defense sees Tucker Kraft in line, is it a run play? Is it a pass play? And there's that unknown pre-snap, and having Kraft and his just well-rounded skill set is such an important factor of bringing that element to the Packers offense.
I think the cool thing too is, he really grew into the tight end role last year, and then he's even better this year, specifically from a blocking standpoint. But adding in some of the H-back DeGuara stuff, that is an important piece of this offense. I kind of said, in the offseason, like, I think Kraft and Sims can run a little bit of that stuff, but I wasn't overly confident that it was going to look quite of like what you wanted it to, although it never did with DeGuara either, which is why I was more confident of like, just put Kraft or Sims. It's not going to be really any different. But Kraft has really owned that piece of it as well. And again, some of the stuff he was doing where he's out blocking as a lead blocker for Willis on the zone read, like those are just really fun plays. And of course, he just goes and obliviates a player on that one. He threw a corner to the side on another play. He's playing physical, violent football. I hope that some of these injuries don't continue to pile up a little bit, because he is playing a violent level of football. It is what it is, and you kind of have to go through it. But whatever it is right now, it is working, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, such a mindset with him, like you said, that attacking ability that he brings, and then such a safety blanket too for the quarterback in the passing game, being able to dump it off to him, and then just seeing his yak ability on display and turning a short throw into a chunk gain for the offense, just obviously huge as well.
I want to talk then about Luke Musgrave, the other tight end, because it's been a very slow start for Luke. And again, partially he's a receiving tight end, and they haven't had Jordan Love these past 2 weeks. So it's a little bit difficult to completely gauge. In that first week with Jordan, of course, they target him over the middle. It ends up being an intercepted pass. I think it was Steno, and you probably remember better than me, but who said like that Luke had a quiet training camp, and they were hoping for big things out of him, but it has been very quiet for Luke these past few weeks. And I'm wondering if there's something you think that they can do to unlock Luke Musgrave, like what needs to happen there. And I think this is a really interesting game with Luke against Minnesota coming up. I went and watched Minnesota versus Houston last night on the All-22. And one of the things that was eerily apparent was how good Brian Flores is at getting matchups for his top edge rushers against tight ends or against running backs, against players that you don't want blocking your best edge rushers. And Grenard had 2 sacks early in this game, not against any offensive lineman. And if Luke Musgrave's in this game and he's the number 2 tight end, there are opportunities that you could get Dallas Turner, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, etc., matched up against Luke Musgrave. And that's going to be a really big sort of question mark / can you hold up in those situations? So there's a lot that's going on with this upcoming week and a tough matchup with Brian Flores' defense. But in general, what you want to see him doing is creating those explosive plays as a playmaker. And those just haven't come for him so far this year.
Yeah. And like you just mentioned, the difficult part about all this is where do the opportunities come from? Because like any player, you want to put them in a position to maximize what their strengths are. So for him, what's that going to be? Intermediate routes over the middle of the field, seam routes where you can let his speed, size, athleticism be on display, but you're going to be sacrificing then to a degree in the blocking element of the game. And as you just mentioned, what Minnesota can throw at defenses from the edge rusher perspective, we know Brian Flores loves to blitz as well. So it's just difficult to see right now how you can consistently get him opportunities. And then I think magnifying that is the fact that you have 6 receivers that you're very, very willing to rely on, lean on as well. So it's just difficult to see where those opportunities are going to come from. But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to, all right, what does he do really well? And how do we put him in positions to where he can maximize those strengths?
I'm not concerned yet. I think he's going to still have a big role, maybe not big, but like a significant a role in this offense. He's going to have some sort of role in this offense. It's going to be important. I'll put it that way. And I do think there's going to be games where he's kind of the guy that's targeted a little bit more, but I am keeping an eye on it because like we've seen his snaps go up after that first week, but especially in a game like this, I'm curious if, especially with the blitzing ability and you wanting to run the football, does Ben Sims start getting a few more snaps? It's usually been like 1 per game right now. And I'm just intrigued. I hope that there is a big time impact still from Luke Musgrave to be had. I think there is, but want to see a little bit more and want to see him start to make a little bit more of an imprint on the game. And hopefully that can come as the rest of the season goes along. I know you talked about pregame and then postgame, this pass rush and whether or not they would let it rip. There was some talk of like, hey, we still need to be cautious and make sure that Levis not win with his feet. And then it felt like, all right, Green Bay had a little bit of a lead. It was getting later in the game. And Jeff Hafley said, let it rip. And then the floodgates just opened. What did you see from this pass rush?
Yeah, we got to see that attacking front that we heard so much about throughout training camp. And I think going beyond the 8 sacks, 7 of which came in the second half, I think what we can really learn from that performance is the flexibility that just Jeff Hafley brings to the defense as a play caller, as a whole. Because you look at that first half, and like you said, I asked LaFleur about it last week, and are these guys itching to let it rip at some point? And he talked about Will Levis's ability with his legs, and I think Levis went into this game with like 80 rushing yards on like nine rush attempts. So has the ability to hurt you with his legs. The Packers have been susceptible to some big plays from running backs in the running game, and so in the early going, as you're feeling it out, it's a tie game, it's a 1-score game. You could see the approach of, all right, let's be a little bit more steady still with our rush lanes. Let's not give up any explosive plays here in the early going. But then especially into the second half, it's a 2-score lead. There's a 3-score lead at one point. Tennessee abandons the run. They start to get pass heavy. You know, like a shark, you could smell blood in the water at that point. And Jeff Hafley then cranked it up a few notches and let the pass rush pin its ears back. And I think that dynamic that I just described between the first half approach and the second half approach should get fans really, really excited, because this isn't a one size fits all game plan where here's what we do, here's how we operate. It's based on the situation. What's the game flow like? How are we winning these matchups? There's a million of those factors that you just can't predict going into the game, that you have to see how it's all unfolding and feel it out to know exactly how you're going to react. So I think from more of a 30,000 foot view, I think that part of it should have fans really excited about just Jeff Hafley's approach as a defensive coordinator, how he calls games, how he prepares those guys. Because, you know, obviously that's his style. So that's going to translate to linebacker position, to the back. And again, big thing, flexibility, not a one size fits all approach.
For a player, the best ability is availability, they say. For a coach, the best ability is adaptability, I feel like. And we are seeing, and this is, we kind of talked about this in the offseason, of Jeff Hafley feels like a Matt LaFleur version of a defensive coach, that this is not going to be, well, we're just going to keep doing what we do well, and we're going to have we're going to make our mark on this game, and they're going to have to come in here trying to stop us. It is, no, we're going to scheme up what is best for us versus the specific opponent that we're playing. And to your point from earlier, and just kind of bringing this full circle, they do have all different flavors of player along this roster. Along the defensive line, TJ Slayton, Kenny Clark, very different than Devontae Wyatt and Carl Brooks. Like Preston Smith, LVN, Enigbari, Rashawn Gary, I would argue all 4 of those are very different types of pass rushers. Linebacker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Quay Walker, Eric Wilson, all 4 very different types of linebackers. Corners, they can, once Valentine is healthy, again, different from Stokes, different from Jair, different from Nixon in the slot. Safety, Katana Ladapo, and I know we're not seeing him, but like is very different from what Xavier McKinney is, which is different than Bullard, which is different than even Evan Williams. Like, there are all different types, and you are going to need those different flavors of players. And the same thing goes at tight end that we just talked about, the different styles of tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, everything. Like, you need something like, hey, this game we might need a big 6'2", 220-pound safety that can play a box safety. All right, we can bring in Katana Ladapo and have him do some of that. I think that's the really cool aspect of how the brain work and brain trust has worked from Goody's standpoint of like, all right, I'll get you whatever you need. I will get you that style of player. And then like the fact that you have 2 coaches that are like, yes, give us as many options, and then we can go into the game and build our game plan for what it is specifically needed in that individual game. Or even to your point, even better, hey, the first half's going to be different than the second half. And we might need to play a more cautious brand of football in the first half. And then the second half, we can let it rip. And all of a sudden, Edgerrin Cooper's coming on super fast blitzes and everything else. I love that aspect. All the takeaway from Jeff Hafley in those immediate press conferences were, oh, it's going to be a lot more press man and single high safety, and they're going to get after the quarterback. And the big takeaway for me was, oh, they are going to mix and match based on what the opponent is doing and how they can put their players in best positions to succeed. And we even saw that with Kingsley Enigbari. if this is a stubborn defensive coordinator, his hand's probably in the dirt on that play where he, does the sidestep inside and gets in the quarterback in like a millisecond. And yet, but he probably said, hey, I feel more comfortable standing up as a pass rusher. Can I? And like Jeff Happ was like, yeah. And he even said that in one of his press conferences, like, hey, some guys are going to be better standing up. Some guys are going to be better with their hand in the dirt. And why would I not want to put the player in position to succeed? And they let Enagbare stand up. He gets after the quarterback, and the rest is history. It's a huge game-changing moment in that last game.
Yeah, throughout the offseason, as we had the opportunity to meet Hafley, speak with Hafley, obviously he's getting questions left and right. What's the defense going to look like? What are you going to do here? What are you going to do there? And there was a lot of, we'll see from Hafley. And it wasn't a sidestep of the question or trying to be super, super cautious about, I don't want to throw too many details out there. Obviously, there's a degree of coach speak with everything, but I think it truly was a we'll see. Like, hey, we got to go through training camp. I got to figure out what the strengths of each of these players are, how they mesh into my defense, and then who are we playing? What does a game plan call for that week? What does the situation call for? So again, that adaptability, kind of the overarching theme of our conversation today, I think we saw that fully on display with the pass rush.
No, very much so. All right, before we get you out of here, quick thoughts, Packers, Vikings, and what are you expecting? Does Jordan Love play? And if so, what are you kind of expecting from him?
Man, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I'll start with the Packers Vikings component.
If you want your answer to be limited, if it's a limited answer, I understand.
Gosh, I totally missed the opportunity there. But I'll start with the Vikings. I mean, my eyes right now are going to be on Aaron Jones. I mean, he looks like vintage Aaron Jones with that Vikings offense right now. And as I mentioned earlier, we've seen some running backs in the early going here have some success, some chunk runs against this Packers defense. So that's kind of the one element so far that we're still, jury's out, so to speak, in terms of the run defense. We saw the pass rush get after them. We've seen the ability to generate turnovers in the secondary, but how can that run defense hold up? And again, Aaron Jones looks really good. So just kind of curious to see. That's right now the big matchup that I'll have my eyes on. As far as Jordan Love, gosh, I mean, who the heck knows? It feels like things are certainly trending in the direction we've heard over and over again. I know he's limited, but there's been a sense of, maybe cautious optimism internally, for lack of a better term, just because everything we've heard from LaFleur hasn't exactly aligned with the reports of the 3, 4 to 6 week time frame. So, I guess my expectation, if I had to guess, is he's going to be limited this week. It's like, I actually think that, yep. Yeah, right. And then again, they'll make their decision on Sunday. If I had to guess, I would think he's going to be out there, but we'll see.
I think he plays. I think he's limited, questionable. We'll give him up until 10:30 a.m., an hour and a half before the game. And then I do think he ends up playing in this one. And maybe we get the Rappaport or the Schefter report the day before at 10 p.m. or whatever that says he is expected to play, or he's expected to go through warmups and test it out, and it's a true game time decision. Who knows? But I do think he ends up playing in this one. Then I think the question just becomes, is there any rust there? Like, how comfortable is he? But I guarantee you, again, like we talked about earlier, Matt LaFleur is going to have an offense prepared and ready for whatever Jordan Love can and cannot do from a mobility standpoint in this game. And they'll be ready for this very difficult Vikings defense. And it should be, I think, a very heavyweight fight early in the season between two division opponents that know each other extremely well. Paul, awesome stuff as always. Plug anything you want to plug, and tell us where we can find all your amazing work.
I appreciate it, Andy. Follow me on Twitter at Paul_Bretl. Head to ESPNlacrosse.com for all my Packers work. Download 105.5 ESPN Lacrosse app, Packers, Brewers, Bucks, Badgers news, sports radio, everything you need.
You can find him too with John Papadopoulos a couple times a week on his radio show. He does an awesome job. And yes, over on ESPN Lacrosse. If you're not checking out Paul's stuff on the regular, you are absolutely missing out. Find him at Paul_Bretl. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.